Hi everyone, welcome to Cola Teaches Math. So today we're going to talk about finding the volume using the disk method. Okay, so you can see right here, I have a region that we're going to call R. And it's going to be bound by the curves y equals x squared, x equals 2, and then the x-axis, which I'll just highlight again in pink. And we are going to rotate it about the x-axis, okay? So I'm going to ask you to rotate this region, rotate R about the x-axis, and we're going to be finding the volume. Okay, so first of all, whatever axes I ask you to rotate it about, that is what we're integrating with respect to. So your first thought is, okay, we're rotating it about the x-axis, we're going to be integrating with respect to x. So what we're going to do next is we're not drawing three-dimensional here. So if I'm asking you to rotate about the x-axis, you're essentially going to do like a reflection. You're going to take this picture, you're going to reflect it over the x-axis, and I need you to think of it like as a sideways Hershey kiss. Okay, so if we reflect it about the x-axis, it's dx, and now we're going to draw our discs perpendicular to whatever axes I ask you to flip over. So I'm asking you to flip over the x-axis, which means we're going to draw a bunch of discs. Think of them like slices. I'm slicing my Hershey Kiss and taking slices out. And that's how we're going to draw your discs, okay? So next we have the formula, pi r squared dx from a to b, and a and b need to be x values. So then what I like to do is I like to take the original picture. Let's do a different color. No, let's do the same color. And I'm going to shade because this length from the top to the bottom is the diameter of the disc, and I just want the radius. So you're just going to shade up until whatever I ask you to flip over. So I'm asking you to flip over the x-axis. That means the radius is going to be what I shaded there in blue. And because the radius is vertical right now, it's like a vertical segment, the radius is going to be the top minus the bottom function. That's how we're going to find it. So the radius is going to be the top function x squared. So the top function is right here. See how they're all touching x squared on top? And then the bottom function down here is the x-axis, which is going to be 0. So my radius is just going to be x squared. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and plug it into the formula. Pi, make sure we square the radius. Okay, now we got to figure out what does a and b mean. Well, a and b need to be x values because we're integrating with respect to x. So I need you to think, what is the x value this curve starts at? What is the x value this curve ends at? The curve is like it's like a sandwich. Those magenta lines are like the bread. The curve is like, I don't know, the meat, whatever. So the x values are going to be 0 to 2. And then we could just type that into the calculator or integrate it by hand, depending on your teacher. And that is how we would represent the volume. All right, now let's look at this one. So same thing here, but I have the same curve, y equals x squared. But then I changed the bounds. So we have the line y equals 4 and the y-axis, okay? So I'm taking that region and I want us to rotate it about the y-axis. And we're going to find the volume. Okay, so here's my thought process. Right away, I say to myself, oh, we're rotating it about the y-axis. So then it's got to be dy, okay? So then we're now going to take that region, flip it over the y-axis, and think of it like an orange. We're taking a half of an orange, slicing it in half, and finding the volume. So because we're flipping it about the y-axis, our discs need to be perpendicular to the y-axis. That's how you know how to draw them. So I'm just going to draw a bunch perpendicular to the y-axis. These are like my slices. And now I'm going to shade the original side of the picture up until whatever I ask you to flip over. So I'm shading up until the y-axis. So now we need to say to ourselves, because this is a horizontal radii, r is going to be right minus left. So r is going to be right minus left. And because the integral is dy, I better not see any x's in my integral, which implies that you need to take this out of y equals and get into x equals. So let's square root both sides, and then you would get x equals plus or minus rad y. But guys, if we're in the first quadrant, this is rad y, positive rad y, not negative. Okay, so now the radius is going to be the right function, rad y, minus the left function, which is just going to be 0. So the radius is rad y minus 0, or we can just say rad y. All right, let's plug it into the formula, pi radius squared. Now, a to b need to be y values because we're integrating with respect to y. So remember, let's make our sandwich, the lowest y value to the highest y value. So that's going to be 0 to 4. Type it in your calculator or integrate it by hand. That's it.